You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Good evening. Force 13 Live is tracking several different cyclones all around the world at this time, as we always are. Where do we begin? There's several systems where you might not expect. The first September South Pacific cyclone since 1951 has formed in the form of Liua, and that is expected to become a Category 2 on the Australian scale as it veers off towards the southwest into the Coral Sea. And who knows where it's going to go beyond then. Typhoon Trami still with us, still strong on the screen right now. The latest chances of tropical storm conditions in the next 5 days for those particular areas concerned. 85% on Miyako-jima. Those of you who saw us earlier on, saw the schedule earlier on, I should say, are wondering where the astronomy hour was. We've put it back an hour because Devon is going to be with us on that, and he's had to postpone for an hour. Hopefully we'll have him at 9 PM Eastern. So we've swapped things around and we're doing the tropical weather update now. You can see those percentage chances all across Japan. They're very high for Typhoon Trami, which is indeed on the way. Let's just see if we can get some of this imagery here that I can now show on the screen. This is the latest from the Himawari 8 satellite, showing exactly what's going on over in the Pacific right now, which is a busy time north and south of the equator. Now, as you look there as well, also 93W, what it was, that is the remnants of Olivia. I think they've gone with 29W now from the JTWC tropical depression. I'm not entirely sure whether it's TD or TS at the minute. Doesn't look particularly great to me. JMA have nothing on that at this point. And also another feature down there towards the equator, which could become our next system. And of course you can't ignore the Typhoon Trami looking, well, a little bit worse for wear after all of its recent struggles. We'll get that imagery uploaded properly shortly. There's the track map for Liua right now, as you can see there too. And just to confirm, TD29 is what the JTWC went with, and because the track isn't on here, let me just show you what it does look like. Pretty much not much to say on that. But that is actually directly associated with the remnants of Olivia that moved through Hawaii, what, 2 weeks ago now? Incredible. Here's the forecast track for Trami. That is a current track actually. I thought I was a little bit confused there briefly. You can see there it's expected to take a surge towards the northwest, pass through the Ryukyu Islands and then on to Japan itself. Moving through there, and they're calling for potentially a Category 3 landfall on Kyushu. If it does indeed strike that main island of Kyushu, the southernmost island of the 4 main ones in Japan, and then onto Shikoku and onto Honshu. However, of course, the track uncertainty remains fairly large and a very significant width around that cone that we're looking at there as well. This is what the JTWC have for Liua as well. You can see there it's located just about over the Solomon Islands, the southernmost island there. Honiara, the capital, is located just to the northwest of the storm. Shouldn't be expecting to see any significant winds, but maybe some significant rains. So the track looks fairly complete. Movement towards the south, curving then towards the southwest and west towards the Coral Sea, out towards nowhere really. But it really is a curious situation that we've got down there in the southern Pacific. Only 5 September cyclones in the South Pacific in records, and none of them until now have occurred in the satellite era, the last one being in 1951, the one before I think was in 1935, so a very, very long time ago since we saw something like this down there in the South Pacific. And holding an early start to the season, it doesn't really warm up until at least the end of October, or indeed the beginning to middle part of November. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the stream, send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and I'll just put up the labels, the outline there as well. You know, since that JTWC update, it looks like the centre of the storm has moved off that island now by quite some distance, and most of the area there being unaffected. So we're pretty much guided by viewers tonight, as always. There's a lot of things that we could be looking at in all parts of the globe. Of course, Tropical Storm Kirk is still going as well, and these are the latest chances for tropical storm conditions in the next 5 days. Up to and above a half chance for Martinique and Dominica, 50 and 58% there. Percentage chances elsewhere fairly low. It's going to be another fairly small system. Just for those concerned about Liua as well, those are the latest percentages. Not many places lit up there because it's not likely to affect anywhere else. And let me just, well, there's some latest satellite imagery of Trami as we've been watching it. Of course, it was named Payeng by the Philippines, and I have to say it's moved very little in nearly 2 days now, and it still looks as good as that. Massive upwelling that's occurred in the storm's wake, and it is still moving extremely slowly, but consolidating, if anything, I would say. In those latest images, they have it down, I think, as a Category 2, 105 mile an hour winds. At least the JTWC have it down as such. And the JMA, just for your consideration, have the storm at a fairly similar intensity, as a matter of fact, 100 miles per hour. I'm just curious if they expect strengthening. Yes, they do expect a little bit of strengthening, the JMA. Just to remind you of some of the watches and warnings that are out at the minute for that as well. Gale advisories for Okinawa, for all of the Ryukyu Islands actually, and a strong wind advisory for most of Taiwan, as it has been the case in many of our video updates recently. Here's a look at the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see how Kirk has been doing. Additionally, the remnants of Leslie, which are likely to regenerate in the next few days. I know the NHC had 70% on that. I'm not sure if it's gone any higher since then. Yes, well, 70% in the next 48 hours, and at 90% in the next 5 days. And you'll have seen on the side of the screen once or twice Rosa as well. It's on the bottom left pane in this instance, and on your left hand side you can see how the hurricane has been developing, and Rosa is expected to curve towards the north, not before becoming a major hurricane though. That's according to the National Hurricane Center. Thinks it will get to strong Category 3 status, curving towards the north and then eventually towards the northeast. Could be a threat to the northern half of the Baja California Peninsula. A fairly rare occurrence, not completely but somewhat. And also you can see quite nicely the bottom right hand side there what could have been, that's Invest 98L, now moving well away from the US East Coast, thankfully. And the Gulf of Mexico on your top right, in case you're interested in the current developments there. Alright, what shall we move on? Here we go with Kirk. Let's reiterate the watches and warnings that are currently in effect. Pretty much expected, you know, what you would expect for this. But there you can see the graphic. There's a tropical storm warning in Barbados, and also for St. Lucia, Dominica, Martinique and Guadeloupe. A tropical storm watch for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 60 miles per hour at this time is Kirk. That was in the latest 8 PM Intermediate Advisory 12A. What are the chances of Rosa hitting LA with tropical storm force winds is a question that I've received in the last few minutes, and I can tell you, in fact it is too early to say, but I would say it is exceedingly unlikely. At the minute we can't give numerical odds anywhere outside of Mexico at this time, but yes, it could creep up towards the US California coast. There's the latest track map for Rosa. This was out as of 3 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and you can see here what track is expected of it and its 5-day extended forecast. So that's Rosa moving off towards the north. Momentarily we'll be bringing in our correspondent from down there in the South Pacific region, who I think has joined us now. Have you?
I'm here,
David.
Nathan. Welcome. Sorry, I should say.
No, I'm welcoming you. Yes.
It's good to be here. You took me by surprise, but I appreciate the invitation. And welcome to the viewers. I've been sitting here listening to the comments from Nathan, and not much has changed since our last streaming event.
Tell us about, I would beg to differ actually, a lot has changed since our last streaming. Tell us about...
I wasn't finished. I didn't finish, but good point.
Well, I want to move you on. Tell us about Liua.
Well, I think it's a girl's name, and the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, they upgraded Invest 91P to tropical cyclone status earlier this morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time. When I came online, I saw a posting in our server from the Fiji Met Office, but I'm not surprised that we now have a, Nathan, I'm going to say a historical cyclone, even though the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is saying that the environment to the southwest of the cyclone is very hostile.
That's not a surprise.
Well, considering I've put out free.
You're popping too much,
updates.
David. Need some more distance.
I put out free updates on the Australian channel. I put one out earlier this morning, so after our live streaming event has finished, I would invite viewers to switch over to the AU channel. I have some material within the video. Wind shear is very hostile. Unfortunately, it hasn't got very much room to move in. And Nathan, what I'll do is I'll bring up the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's
yeah, we've been looking at it on and off. You're looking at the satellite imagery right now across the whole Pacific, north and south. You can see, of course, Typhoon Trami up the top left-hand side, and down towards your bottom right is the new cyclone. It's difficult to say how rare these things are. I mentioned that the history for a September cyclone. It's actually the rarest month of all for a South Pacific storm. You're more likely to get one in August than in September, actually.
Nathan, just following on to what you just said, I have had communication with one of our storm chasers over here in Australia, all he can find is this later than 2003, but another posting, we could probably go back to 1840, but I pick up on what you've said to me privately, that we can go back to 1951 and 1934. But
we're yet to probably look at 1951, so I don't know about that one. But definitely 1934, because that's in the Bureau of Meteorology database with a pressure around 996 or something like that. That occurred in September. I don't know exactly where that was. Somewhere in the South Pacific, obviously, but whether it was in the Coral Sea or it was, I'm guessing it would have been the Coral Sea area. They always do form in this area when they're supposedly out of season, right?
Yes, and with this cyclone, even though it's going to be short-lived, that remains to be seen. Is this a indicator of a more active 2018-19 Southern Hemisphere tropical cyclone season? I should mention to viewers that the official season starts November the 1st.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, with tropical cyclone CO2P or Liua, I haven't got that one right, 573 nautical miles northwest of Port Vila, Vanuatu, tracking east-southwest at 17 knots. This is over the last 6 hours. Animated enhanced infrared satellite imagery shows the consolidating system with a low-level circulation centre covered by substantial flaring convection. A 91 gigahertz image is showing low-level cloud bands wrapping in under the deep convection, and the initial intensity, Nathan, 35 knots based on the Vorak current intensity of T3, 45 knots. However, environmental analysis shows that now the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has made a mistake. They actually referred to Typhoon 28W. So when I was doing my...
That's Trami.
Yeah, that's Trami. It's in the advisory for 91P. So...
Oh, right.
Now, sea surface temperature is 20.
I was just doing some real-time research there, David. There's no correlation between an active season and an early start to the season. Although it is I would say it is a coincidence that the most active season, 1997-98, began in early October. Nathan,
I've got a question that I would like to put to you. I'll just finish on what you just said. The tropical cyclone is forecast to turn immediately to the south as the steering ridge to the east builds in, then tracking westward. And after the 24-hour mark has been reached, an extension of the steering ridge builds into itself. The environment to the southwest of TC02, as I mentioned, is unfavourable. High vertical wind shear, cooler 26, 28 sea surface temperature. However, the centre is saying that TC02 is forecast to marginally intensify, but only to 40 knots by, within the 12 hours before it starts weakening. But I find the track of the cyclone interesting. Yes, because the Fiji Met Office, they have it as a Cat 2.
Yeah, they have the storm lasting much longer.
So now I should also mention to our viewers that the Coral Sea is one of the most trickiest, or the trickiest basins to forecast. And one of our main headaches over here is the massive amount of wind shear. Now, looking at the activity in the West Pacific, I also see that we have 94W, and that's just to the northwest of the 02P. Now, Nathan, what I want to ask you, when we look at what is actually going on up there in the Westpac, are we seeing a bit of the energy tracking down over the equator? It's just something I've been wondering, because I'm trying to understand the environment.
Well, it is very curious that that invest is pretty much, you know, the polar opposite of, almost completely, of Liua right now. You can see how close they are together, split by the equator alone.
Yes.
Now, I've not had the benefit to go back through time and see whether there was something, what sort of interaction they had, but it is curious to look at the phase diagram, and 94W expected from the GFS to become a very strong typhoon, and a long-lived strong typhoon as well. As it, well, I say long-lived, I mean over 3 days near its peak intensity. Looking at this, I've not looked at the proper numbers yet. As it moves towards the northwest, and another potential problem for the Japanese islands, which has been getting absolutely everything this year apart from Mancut.
Yes, and adding to that, over the last 3-4 hours I've been looking at various live streaming webcams for the Japanese region, and conditions not looking good. I've actually seen some flooding below a highway or bridge.
Now, where's that?
Oh, Nathan, I would have to get back to you on that one. And the JMA only has local storm warnings, flooding. I think they did cancel their...
They've got some gale advisories.
Yes, that's what you've cited, and I haven't had a chance to look at their website, which I'm going to do now.
Just a curious one for you. The GFS at the minute has the remnants of this storm hitting the Cape York Peninsula. Very, very weak by the time it gets there. Barely identifiable at all.
That is interesting, but that lends support to a comment on the Oz Cyclone Chasers Facebook page. That is the place where I've been communicating with the operators, and I cited one posting hoping that it would track over towards that region that you mentioned, Nathan, Cairns, Townsville, for the rain only, because there are quite a few areas that are in drought.
Now, David, I want to run something else by you. Are you aware of the other invest now in the Southern Hemisphere, 92S? And the GFS model, at least, is on board with this one becoming a brief tropical cyclone as well.
All right. If I go to my
This
tropical
is way out
cyclone
in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean, yes, I have been monitoring that for the last couple of days. One of my own sites that I follow is the Tropical Cyclone Formation Probability Guide, and it is showing a bit of purple in that region. So Nathan, I wouldn't be surprised, because I should mention to viewers, apology for my voice, the Bureau of Meteorology Australia, their Perth office, Tropical Cyclone Warning Centre, they are generating tropical cyclone advisories, free daily outlook over here on the east coast of Coral Sea. They don't start till November the 1st, but the Western Australia Centre, it is known that advisories via the free day outlook can be posted 365, well, let's say across the 12 months. So I'm not surprised that there's likelihood of a tropical signal over in the Indian Ocean. And Nathan, perhaps it could be where we see the second tropical cyclone,
well,
drawing closer to November the 1st.
Well, let's now look at the latest infrared imagery right now of what's going on in the Atlantic and East Pacific. A wide shot here showing everything as it has been in the last 3 hours, 2.5 hours or so. Rosa far over there to the left hand side, Kirk approaching the Lesser Antilles, and what's left of Leslie, which is, I think you could definitely argue the case that it's more impressive than it was when it was subtropical, and could be regenerating soon, but not just yet. Maybe pretty soon. 48 hours, 70% chance on that. I wonder if there's any benefit zooming into Rosa. It is the strongest storm in the Western Hemisphere at this moment in time, and it's yet to load. Well, you can see some images on the panel on the left hand side of how the system has been developing in those latest frames. Things not working so well with the other imagery, but that storm looking interesting. If you've got any comments or questions for us to dictate the mood and the motion of our live event tonight, we're here for the rest of this hour at 9 PM Eastern Time, which is the end of this hour. Devon will be coming in with Astronomy Hour. It was originally signposted for 8 PM, but there's been a delay and it will instead be at 9. Well, we'll wait for that to come back.
Nathan, I just want to have a look at Hurricane Rosa. I'm just reading the information at the National Hurricane Centre, Scott. Rosa continues to strengthen this afternoon, improved deep convective banding features with -83°C cloud tops are evident in both visible and microwave images, particularly in the east.
But the thing is, this convection that we're looking at, that we're about to see on the screen, isn't really over the center. Struggling a little bit with that.
It appears that Rosa will continue to quickly strengthen through this evening, whilst it moves over warm oceanic temperatures and in a high moisture, low shear atmospheric environment. But they indicate that Rosa, while showing strengthening but at a slower pace. Beyond 48 hours, steady weakening is forecast due to decreasing sea surface temperatures, increasing southwesterly shear, and a high statistically stable surrounding environment. And as we know, she's tracking west-northwest at 9 knots. Within the mid-level easterly steering flow produced by a mid-level ridge extending from northern Mexico westward over the eastern Pacific. At around day 3, Rosa is expected to move northwest, then northward day 4 in response to a mid-latitude trough approaching from the northwest. And the track spread beyond day 3 continues to be an issue with the GFS Global HWRF hurricane model, indicating a much more faster north to northeast motion than the slower European model.
That might be an interesting place to go and have a look right now at the HWRF and the HMON models and see what they're saying for all of these systems right now, if anything. Okay, none of the graphics are working. Nothing appears to be working today at all. In fact, I don't think HWRF is working properly at the minute on their website. No, it is not. So that's a bummer. The only thing it is working on is Invest 94W. That's the only thing I can bring to you. And this is what it looks like from the HWRF, calling for a Category 4 in the next few days, and a very weird looking track. Windfield. That could potentially be a threat to the Philippines looking at that, but at the minute I would suggest it's going to be further north. It's going to be something that's for the long range, certainly. That's the only one on HWRF that works right now, unfortunately, so I'm not sure what the issue is there. Maybe it will come back a little bit later on. And just looking at it, there's nothing up for HMON either, so I don't know what's going on there. It should have something for Kirk, definitely something for Rosa, but nothing as far as I can see.
And 94W is Tropical Depression 29W. Am I right there?
Say again.
Tropical Depression 29W.
Yeah, that's there.
Is 94W.
No, that was 93. 93W is closely related, very closely, to the remnants of Olivia.
Oh yeah, I've got it. 29.
If it was in Atlantic, if it was in the Atlantic, it probably would have been named Olivia again because they did it with Lee, which I don't agree with. But it had a more clear-cut case than Lee did, for instance. So I might have had the mind to call it Olivia. The JMA, by the looks of things, have not put anything out on it so far, and with storms in this location that the 29W is in, that they're probably going to ignore it.
And Tropical Depression 29W, which I think is ex-Olivia.
Yeah, I just said all that.
Yep, alright, yeah, sorry. Located 488 nautical miles north-northwest Minami Torishima.
Yes.
Tracking northward.
That's how far out to sea it is.
Deep convection sheared 85 nautical miles to the northeast. Convective banding wrapping at a central low reflective area, intensity initially 30 knots. I'm just reading the information. The environmental analysis reveals the system is in strong poleward outflow enhanced by the mid-latitude jet and no equatorward outflow.
Equatorial.
Yep. Wind shear 20 to 25 knots, tracking through warm 29 to 30 Celsius.
So, David, I want to change gear here for a minute.
Right.
Some people are talking about our recently famous member, Strat. Have we banned him? The ban Strat campaign gained ground. He's not
It's
here tonight.
gaining
Silence.
momentum, but unfortunately, he's not here tonight, so we'll have to put that one on hold.
Yes. I'm sure you'll hear from him somewhere. Maybe even in the comments section. He's probably going to time out everyone who says that it's a good thing. Anyway, we're looking at these images. These are the track forecasts for all the various storms. And now there's going to be a Bring Back Strat campaign. Wonderful.
Who wants to start that? I'll start that.
Oh, it's already been started. Don't worry about that. These again, there's the JMA forecast for Trami. Look how little it's moved in the last 2 or 3 days there. It's just incredible.
Nathan, unfortunately, I haven't been able to capture the International Space Station flying over Trami, but I've been keeping an eye on the imagery, and it's, as you said, really hasn't moved. And looking at the floaters on Trami, and my last update that I did clearly showed the various floaters, and I had one, I think the coordinates on, and it just wasn't moving. And which reminds me, I should have a look at...
Here's a recent image from about 25 minutes ago showing the very center of the storm.
Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has at 315 nautical miles south-southeast of Kadena Air Force Base, tracking northward at 1 knot. And I should say to viewers, it is expected to shift to the northeast, but the
northwest,
west-northwest, north, then northeast.
Northwest, and then towards the northeast later.
Right. Now, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, in their technical information, 28W maintains a wide eye with resurgent convection in the eye wall.
Yes.
And the SATCOM, Nathan, estimate 91 knots.
If we just move the camera over to the right-hand side somewhere, is it up here? Yes, this is 29W. Goodness me, it looks appalling.
You know, I'm hoping that I might be...
Is that really 29W? I'm wondering whether... That is definitely 29W.
Ooh.
It looks shocking. I'm sorry, that is just not a tropical depression. No other JMA don't have it on their books.
Oh, that's 29. Ooh.
Awful.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Let's look further south. There's 94W. Somewhere amongst all of that will be our next typhoon, most likely. And then again, as you go further south, quite a small system. Liua, is it?
I'll say the National Weather Service, and it's actually to the west of Guam, isn't it?
It's quite far away from Guam, 94W. But here is the South Pacific storm. What you're looking at is a rarity, something that has never been seen on satellites. A South Pacific storm in September, never been seen on satellites. 1951 is the last time we think it happened. It might actually be 50-51, the season. It also happened in 1934-35, in 1917-18, and the previous year, 16-17, and also in 1910-11. So curious to see it happening quite a few times back then. Whether they were actually bona fide cyclones as we see today is another argument entirely, but I'm pretty convinced that at least the 1934 one was a actual cyclone, if none of the others, but I haven't done in-depth research into them. But here we are in 2018.
Yes, it's definitely one for the record books. And I'm just going to have a look at the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, see what they have on the they have tropical cyclone Liua, 995 millibars, located 10.1 south, 161.4 east, and will drop to 993 and be located 12.2 south, 161 east. Southeasterly quarter, winds tending clockwise within 300 nautical miles of the low, the cyclone. Winds 15-25 knots, increasing 20 to 30 knots within 240 nautical miles, and 25-33 within 60 nautical miles. That's the information on their high seas forecast page, which was updated 22:00 UTC, which I think is about 7 o'clock.
Send in your questions live to Force 13 in the chat section. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It will light up nicely for us. Can Leslie regrow? It says. I would have said regenerate personally, but I guess you could say that as well. It sort of is growing right now. Regrow and hit the East Coast. No. No. It can't. It can't. There's already a trough moving through the East Coast right now, which is already sending 98L far away to the northeast. So no, it's not going to go anywhere near the US East Coast.
Nathan, one of our viewers just posted, I just checked Tropical Tidbits, and that's one site that I really enjoy following, and GFS says 94W would hit south of Japan as a 940 cyclone.
Huh.
And as I haven't had a chance to look at the models, considering what's going on down here in the southern hemisphere, and also Sydney. Nathan had a severe thunderstorm late yesterday afternoon, and one road was completely covered with hail. It looked like it was snow.
There's another question. Chances of major Atlantic hurricane this season that will hit US. I would say there is a chance of that. And curiously, I was looking recently through Force 13's predictions for the year to come, and the predictions that were released back in April, and we haven't been doing that badly. A few things didn't come to fruition this year so far, and I wonder if it might be interesting to bring up those key messages now and examine that again, because it was quite curious. I don't suppose if that is possible for me to do that right now. Anyway, David, say something.
Okay, appreciate good timing. Tropical cyclone outlook for the Coral Sea issued at 9:52 a.m., which is just under an hour ago. This is from the Tropical Cyclone Warning Centre here in Brisbane. Tropical cyclone Liua. I know I haven't got that right. Cat 1, located east of the eastern region near the Solomon Islands, about 150 kilometres to the southeast of Liua. The system is expected to move slowly south today and may develop further before moving, wait for it Nathan, to the southwest as it weakens into Saturday.
Could Rosa hit the United States as a tropical storm? I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Nathan, could I just put to you, how about hurricane force winds impacting Arizona?
Oh, no. No. Arizona's too far inland.
What about the speed of Rosa?
What about it?
Do we know how fast she's moving?
Oh, God.
Leave it.
It was at 10 miles per hour. Now, yeah, I just wanted to bring back what we were expecting at the start of this. Okay, it was supposed to load properly. How annoying. I've got to resize it. This is what we said at the start of this season for likely significant hurricane tracks in 2018, and the key messages, which is on the right hand side that you can't see because it's not been displayed properly. Curious to see how some of those tracks went, but we're still waiting on one or two of those things to come anywhere near fruition, like a Mexico storm perhaps, or a possible system threatening the Harvey affected area. Indeed, 95L looked like it might have been the system that would have done that, although it did not, and certainly I'm not disappointed that that didn't happen, because obviously the situation there would have been catastrophic had it been a particularly strong storm when it arrived. So another point of curiosity is what we had in prediction for the Western Pacific. Of course, we're not through the whole season, but very curious to see some of those percentage chances. The last ones didn't work out at all, but the first ones quite a lot. At least one Category 4 landfall possible in the Philippines or higher. Then enhanced typhoon risk for Hainan and Guangdong, China. Typical risk for Vietnam. Enhanced risk of typhoon activity in northern Taiwan and southern Japan, definitely. So I think those messages are still being conveyed at this time as well, as we continue to watch what is going on.
And Nathan, the Bureau over here is indicating in their advisory that the system may enter the eastern region late Friday or Saturday as a tropical cyclone before it weakens. But looking at the 24-hour shear tendency, the wind shear is expected to drop in the southwestern quadrant. And the cyclone poses no threat to the coast of Queensland. And
yeah, well,
as she
clearly.
Yep, as she tracks towards the region, the Willis radar might be able to pick some of it up.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get close enough for that at all.
And then you are to Met Office. They only have local coastal waters advisories in place. I'm just checking to see if they've got anything. They have a marine wind warning.
Okay.
They also have a severe weather warning. They have an
There's some other questions as well. Could Kirk hit Florida as a TD? Everyone is obsessed with Florida. And will this storm come and that storm? No, I really don't think so. Isaac, people were going in a fuss over Isaac, died in the Caribbean. Kirk will probably die in the Caribbean as well. Those are the percentage chances on your screen for Typhoon Trami, incidentally. Higher than 90% in Okinawa up to the Amami Islands, and 85's quite commonplace in southern Kyushu. The storm is likely to head towards this area of Japan in the later part, well, over the weekend into early next week, as it continues on its trek after its ridiculous amount of stalling that the storm has done in those recent days. And you know, we were talking about category 5s and stalling in a previous, I don't think we were streaming actually, but there was an intense debate going on the Force 13 Discord server about how long it could hold on to category 5 if it stalled. And I said, I was looking through the archives, and during the satellite era there wasn't a single example of a storm stalling and maintaining category 5 for more than 12 hours, and lo and behold, Trami rapidly weakened, as most of the other examples did of stalling category 5s. It has to be moving a little bit, but it really did look very impressive when it was when it first started stalling near that at its peak intensity, and remarkable imagery how that it didn't move a single mile in about an hour.
And also
that's the definition of a stationary typhoon.
Yep. The International Space Station actually captured some outstanding photographs of the Trami, and another impressive eye. And the Westpac is really generating these systems. How many has the basin seen Cat 5s now?
In the Western Pacific?
Yep.
I think it is 4. What category will Trami hit Japan at? Well, it depends. Which part of Japan? If you mean the main islands, it could still conceivably be a category 3 by the time it gets there. Of course, that's stronger than it is now. We do expect some intensification because of those very warm sea surface temperatures. Oh, by the way, this is what the models are saying for Rosa, in case you were wondering. Oh dear, Navgem and friends taking it towards California. Well, that would be something interesting. That would be something interesting to watch, even if it was just the remnants, hey?
Now, what's the one in the green? NGX, NEMN, and what's the other one? NC.
A lot of those are statistical models, indeed. And then you've got a few other silly ones like the CMC.
Actually, Nathan, just whilst a lot of members don't like the Canadian model.
Oh no, you're not.
The Canadian, say this one again. The Canadian is actually more supportive of the cyclone down here to the others.
Yeah, well, of course it would be.
Well, the GFS, they really don't want to have anything to do with this cyclone.
Well, that happened. That is pretty much to be expected in that part of the world at this time of year. Of course, David is still talking about Cyclone Liua, which formed in the South Pacific. And that really is our headline for tonight, isn't it, David? Certainly in terms of its historical precedent. The first storm to form in the South Pacific since satellites in September, and the first one we think since 1950-51, failing that 1934-35.
And considering that I experienced Cyclone Wanda, which was 1974.
Oh God.
Cyclone Yasi up here in Cairns, tropical cyclone Oswald that formed northwest Gulf of Carpentaria, tracked down into the southeastern region of the Gulf and tracked right down through over my location, causing major flooding here in Brisbane and without power for a few days.
All right, we got to wrap up, David. We're coming up to the end of the hour. To reiterate,
for half an hour.
Typhoon Trami is still a Category 2, and the threat is rising for Japan all over, from north to south, and the Ryukyu Islands. Hurricane Rosa is intensifying, could become a major, and the threat to northern parts of Mexico is starting to rise as well. Still very long range, 5 days out. In the Atlantic, Kirk is holding on to 60-mile-per-hour winds as it starts to progress towards the Leeward Islands, where tropical storm warnings are in effect, and Cyclone Liua in the southern Pacific. Also, the potential to see 2 new Pacific storms, well, actually 3 new Pacific storms, east, central and west, one for each basin, in the next week. Leslie to regenerate very soon in the next 2 days, and a potential for this southern Indian invest as well. So there's a lot of things to be watching over the next few days. We're going away now. Next up is Astronomy Hour with Devon, the first Astronomy Hour that we've done in God knows how long. We hope to bring it to you now on a monthly schedule, and I don't know what Devon has lined up for us. We're going to find out, aren't we? So I look forward to that as much as I hope you do. David?
Well, I look forward to the Astronomy Hour, but a very busy Northern Hemisphere season, and leading into the Southern Hemisphere, and
good night from us.
Yep.
All right then. Thank you very much, David, for joining me tonight, and thank you for watching. Astronomy Hour is next.